Welcome to ComedyMX's Cartoon Classics channel. Binge out on the animated Superman, Popeye, Bugs Bunny and Friends, Technicolor classic tunes, animators UB Iwerks and Max Fleischer, Mickey Mouse, Betty Boop, and all your cartoon favorites.
And now stand by for adventure. 3, 2, 1. In the exciting story of Scratch and his feathered friend. Interplanetary space investigator Colonel Bleep and his deputies, Squeek and Scratch, roared with atomic speed past the black planet Pluto, over and under the green planets Neptune and Uranus, through the glowing yellow rings of Saturn, and then screeched to a halt, directly over the 12th moon of Jupiter. Somewhere below, on this mysterious satellite, lurked the evil Doctor Destructo, master criminal of outer space. This time, Bleep meant to track him down for sure. To Scratch, the caveman, landing here was like stepping back into the dim past of his childhood, because this forgotten world was inhabited by the same prehistoric monsters which roamed the earth when Scratch was just a boy, back in the days of the dinosaurs. Anxiously, Bleep searched the horizon with his Butomic Visoscanner and quickly spotted Destructo's hideaway, high on a rocky cliff beyond. At twilight, they would attack and capture the villain in his lair. Meanwhile, Squeak settled down on a cozy bed of soft green ferns to rest until 0 hour. And Scratch, remembering his childhood, went happily off in search of a tasty prehistoric egg, a luscious treat he had not enjoyed for several thousand years. The caveman was at home here, and no beast, regardless of size, ferociousness, or cunning, could frighten him or keep him from finding that egg. And then Scratch saw it, the biggest, roundest, most delicious egg there ever was. But when Scratch reached to pick up his prize, it suddenly began to shake and rattle and roll round and round. The caveman dove under a feather to hide just as the great egg shattered. And there stood a strange bird, a super bird, far larger than Scratch himself. Thinking the top of Scratch's head was another egg, the bird tried to peck it open too. And when Scratch leaped up, the bird felt sure this was his newly hatched brother, and he began to hug the caveman joyfully. Meanwhile, as twilight gathered, Bleep and Squeak silently closed in on the entrance to Doctor Destructo's secret cave. A strange glow from within meant the mad scientist was busy at work, and his capture looked easy if only they could be quiet enough to surprise him. But just at that moment, Squeak accidentally squeaked, alerting the huge vampire bat which stood guard at the mouth of the cave. The evil creature lunged towards them. At the same time, Bleep aimed a blast of Butomic energy at the beast. But too late, he realized that the long trip to Jupiter's 12th moon had completely discharged his Butomic storage battery. Now, the great bat swooped upward, clutching the helpless pair. But Scratch, riding his prehistoric superbird, had also seen the bat, and in an instant, the huge bird, with the caveman at the controls, dived down towards the monster for a fight to the finish. Then a head-on crash sent the bat spinning down, straight towards the entrance of Destructo's hideout, while Bleep and Squeak floated to safety on 2 great feathers. Yes, Scratch and Superbird had saved the day, but there was no time now to check on the fate of Destructo, because Superbird was waiting to fly them back to the planet Futura, where a new supply of Butomic energy and another exciting assignment would be waiting for Colonel Bleep of the Interplanetary Space Command. And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Scratch and the Sea Serpent. Scratch was headed for trouble. On the shore of the lagoon near the center of the island, he had found what appeared to be the entrance to a great cave. Scratch peeked into the dark interior, squeezed between the huge white rocks at the entrance, tumbled inside, and then down he went. Down, down, down into a tunnel of darkness. Too late. Scratch realized that this wasn't a cave at all, but the inside of a gigantic sea serpent. And the great white rocks he had squeezed through were the monster's teeth gleaming in the sun. And now those giant jaws of the sea serpent had closed, trapping our caveman friend, maybe forever. Of course, little Squeak, busy in his library, and Colonel Bleep in his laboratory were unaware that Scratch was in trouble. Bleep, for some time, had been experimenting with a secret formula for changing Futomic lightning bolts into solid rods stronger than steel. That very morning, he had discovered the final missing ingredient, which Bleep called frigid plutonium 505. By creating a Futomic lightning bolt, then quickly freezing it with frigid plutonium, the bolt became a solid rod as light as a feather, yet stronger than steel. That same morning, little Squeak was in the library of his new dream home, dusting the many shelves filled with wonderful magic books. These books were magic because the pictures in them actually moved. For instance, here's a page from Treasure Island. And Jack and the Beanstalk. And here's Squeak's favorite book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, the story of the little wooden puppet who had all kinds of exciting adventures and even became a real live boy. It wasn't until about 20 minutes after Scratch disappeared down the throat of the sea serpent that Bleep and Squeak discovered he was missing. Through the Futomic radar scanner, Bleep could see every spot on 00 Island, but Scratch was nowhere to be found. Then Bleep saw a movement in the lagoon. It was the sea monster. And when Bleep switched on the X-ray vision attachment, he plainly saw that the caveman was trapped in the stomach of that serpent. In an instant, Bleep and Squeak streaked to the water's edge. With a flash, Bleep made 2 Futomic lightning bolts, sprayed them with frigid plutonium 505, and using these strong rods as stilts, they waded into the sea to catch the serpent by surprise. As Squeak pinched the monster's nose, its mouth opened and Bleep jammed the stilt between those great jaws. And before Squeak could squeak, the colonel had dashed inside the serpent to rescue their old friend Scratch. Then Bleep grabbed the beast by the tail and with super Futomic strength threw him completely out of this world. So once again, Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch are reunited. And you can just bet that Scratch will not step into any more caves without testing first to be sure that it is just a cave. And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Shadows of Suspicion. Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch spent many happy days at their home base on Earth, 00 Island. The Colonel kept busy with new experiments in his lab. Scratch spent many happy hours digging away in the garden, and Squeak played with his favorite toy, a little wooden puppet. Squeak loved this toy, perhaps because he himself was made of choice lumber.
a block of delicate white pine for his head, and a board of sturdy oak for his body. Yes, little Squeak was really a wooden puppet, but few could have guessed that he was anything other than a real and very natural little boy. For he certainly was full of mischief like most real little boys, as his friends knew too well. Bleep still recalls the shock of dashing about for almost an hour, dodging what he believed to be flashing meteorites, only to discover later that little Squeak had slipped a handful of fireflies into the Colonel's helmet, just for fun. Another time, Bleep awoke from a sound sleep to find himself covered with green and yellow spots, a sure sign of Futurian frog pox. But little Squeak knew that the colorful dots on the spaceman's helmet were just dabs of paint, for the puppet had put them there himself, just for fun. But it was poor Scratch, the good-natured caveman who suffered most from this puppet trickery. More than once, his trusty wooden club had been nailed to the floor. And who can recall how many times a scrumptious coconut pie had a hidden balloon inside, just waiting for poor Scratch's knife or fork. Squeak's favorite prank, however, was making shadow pictures on the wall by holding his fingers in front of a bright candle. He would create the shadow of a wolf, then signal for help, and Scratch would dash to the rescue, only to find the puppet rocking with laughter at his joke. The caveman had been fooled by Squeak's shadow pictures of a giant crab, a monstrous crocodile, and a ferocious ostrich. At last, Scratch had vowed never to be tricked again. Then, one day, it happened. Bleep had blasted off for a closer look at a storm cloud approaching the island. Scratch was inside his cave, carving a new wooden club, and Squeak was fishing in the brook by the waterfall. At the first raindrop, Squeak dashed for the nearby shelter of Scratch's cave. Now, no one had noticed that a giant tropical spider had just spun its huge web across the cave entrance, and poor Squeak ran smack into this deadly trap. Scratch looked towards the doorway to see the puppet snared in the giant web, but as he watched, the stormy sky outside made his poor struggling friend look like just another of Squeak's own shadow tricks. And Scratch returned to his club carving, determined not to be fooled again, and never dreaming that his little friend was really in trouble this time. Poor Squeak shook with terror as the giant spider appeared, ready to devour him. It would be all over in a flash. And it was, but the flash was from a powerful bolt of Bleep's atomic energy. Yes, the Colonel had returned just in time to save the puppet. And so a very frightened Squeak, now safe in the arms of his friends, promised faithfully never to call for help unless he was in honest-to-goodness real trouble. For now he knows that a foolish trick can sometimes cost a life.